The wind arrived first, sliding down the mountain like a warning whispered too late. It carried the smell of sulfur and wet stone, a sharp, metallic breath that caught in the throat. Below, the forest trembled. Leaves rattled as if something enormous were passing unseen, and the birds, usually loud at dawn, fell silent. In places like this, danger never announces itself clearly. It gathers, patient and quiet, until the earth decides to move. The ridge stood above a fault line that had shaped the land for millions of years. Here, plates collided, ground rose and cracked, and volcanoes were born. From a distance, the mountain looked calm, almost gentle, its slopes softened by moss and vines. But beneath that green skin, heat churned. Magma shifted in slow rivers, grinding stone into memory. The people who lived at the edge of the forest knew this. They told stories of nights when the ground glowed red and rivers ran black, of ash that turned day into twilight. Still, life returned again and again, stubborn and fearless. A field team had come to document how animals survive in one of the most dangerous ecosystems on Earth. The forest here was young, grown on layers of old ash, and yet it pulsed with life. Insects stitched the air with wings. Frogs clung to slick rocks near hot streams that steamed even in the cold. Orchids bloomed where the soil was barely more than dust. Danger had not erased life, it had sharpened it. At dawn, a low rumble rolled through the valley. Not an explosion, not yet, more like a distant drumbeat. The mountain was waking. Seismic sensors buried along the slope flickered with activity, tracing tiny fractures deep below. The team moved carefully, every step measured. Helmets, gas masks, heat-resistant suits, layers of protection against forces that could never truly be controlled. On a narrow trail, they found the first sign of a recent shift, a crack in the earth wide enough to swallow a hand. Warm air breathed out of it, carrying sulfur and steam. Around the crack, beetles gathered, their shells glossy and black. They fed on microbes that thrived in heat toxic to most life. Evolution had carved a narrow path here, and these creatures walked it with precision. Farther upslope, the forest thinned. Trees twisted into strange shapes, roots gripping bare rock like fingers refusing to let go. Here lived one of the region's most elusive predators, a cat built for shadows and cliffs. Its coat blended perfectly with ash and stone, pale and ghost-like. Camera traps had captured it only a handful of times, always moving at the edge of visibility. In a land where eruptions could erase territories overnight, stealth was survival. By midday, the air grew heavy. Clouds stacked against the mountain, dark and swollen. Rain came suddenly, hammering the ground. Water poured into fissures, flashed into steam, and hissed back out. Mudslides were common here, and deadly. The team took shelter behind a rock outcrop just as a wall of sludge thundered down a nearby slope, carrying trees like matchsticks. When it passed, the landscape was rearranged, familiar paths erased, new scars cut into the mountain's face. Danger was not only geological. In the lowlands, rivers braided through the forest, swollen with rain and ash. Beneath their opaque surface lived ancient predators, armored and patient. They sensed vibrations, not shapes, and struck with explosive speed. Animals came to drink cautiously, scanning the water for the slightest ripple. One mistake meant disappearance, a sudden burst of foam, and silence. As evening approached, the mountain gave its clearest warning yet. A sharp crack echoed across the valley, followed by a plume of ash rising from the summit. It was not a full eruption, but a release, pressure venting through a newly opened wound. Ash drifted down like gray snow, coating leaves, feathers, skin. For plants, ash could be a gift, rich with minerals. For lungs, it was lethal. Bats poured from caves as the sky darkened, their wings cutting through the ash-filled air. They fed on insects drawn to the heat vents, navigating by sound in a world where sight was unreliable. Above them, lightning stitched the clouds, thunder shaking the ground. Fire and water met, ancient rivals locked in brief combat. Night fell fast. The forest transformed. Eyes appeared everywhere, small, reflective, watching. Predators moved, silent and efficient. A snake slid across warm rock, sensing heat through its body. Somewhere close, a large herbivore crashed through undergrowth, panicked by tremors humans could barely feel. Fear traveled quickly here, passed from muscle to muscle, species to species. The team retreated to a reinforced shelter, walls lined with instruments that tracked gas levels and ground movement. Outside, the mountain continued to murmur. Each sound carried meaning: a hiss, a groan, a distant boom. Sleep came in fragments. Dreams were filled with red light and falling stone. At first light, the damage became clear. Ash lay thick on the ground, muting color and sound. A river had changed course overnight, carving a new channel through the forest. Yet already, life was adjusting. Birds returned, picking insects from ash-coated leaves. Small plants pushed through gray powder, green against monochrome. Even danger left room for renewal. Near a lava field cooled decades ago, the team observed a remarkable sight. A herd of ungulates crossed hardened rock, hooves finding purchase on jagged surfaces. They had learned these routes over generations, memorizing safe paths through a landscape that refused to stay still. Their calves followed closely, every step a lesson in survival. The mountain remained restless. Gas plumes rose and fell. Sensors recorded a steady increase in pressure. An evacuation order would come soon. Still, the work continued, because understanding danger is the first step toward living with it. The animals had no choice but to adapt. Humans, with all their technology, were still visitors here. By afternoon, the eruption came. Not a single explosion, but a sequence: vents opening, ash columns rising, lava spilling in slow, glowing rivers. The sound was immense, a roar that filled the chest and rattled bone. Heat shimmered across the air. The team withdrew to a safe distance, watching as the mountain reshaped itself in real time. Forests burned where lava touched them, flames leaping high, smoke rolling into the sky. Elsewhere, ash fell gently, blanketing fields. Animals fled when they could, moved upslope or downwind, instincts honed by ancestors who had faced the same terror. Some would not escape. Danger here was absolute and impartial. When the eruption eased, silence followed, deep and unsettling. The mountain steamed, wounded but quiet. Days later, rain would fall, washing ash into soil, feeding future growth. Seeds already lay buried, waiting for light. This was the truth of one of the world's most dangerous places: destruction and creation bound together. Life did not merely survive danger, it depended on it. The mountain would erupt again, and again the forest would return, altered but alive. In this cycle, fear was not an ending. It was a force that shaped every wing, claw, and root, forging resilience from fire and stone.